Yang lain biasanya apabila sultan ataupun raja mangkat, anak dan baginda akan menggantikan. Tetapi di Seri Sembilan tidak.
Dan yang saya sandang hari ini mula saya terima semasa kembalinya saya daripada haji. Jadi dalam masa-masa saya berada di sana, saya bermimpi saya dibawa oleh satu orang ke satu tempat. Ke satu tempat yang penuh berwarna serba kuning, emas. Bila saya masuk ke dalam bilik tu, saya ternampak kebahagiaan tuanku almarhum. Sebabnya saya pun tak tahu macam mana. Apabila saya balik daripada menunaikan haji, saya dimaklumkan, diberitahu oleh istana mengatakan kebahagiaan tuanku berkenan melantik saya sebagai ketua Pertabalan Sembilan. Perasaan gembira tu saya tak dapat nak cakap macam mana, sebab ini satu pengalaman yang saya rasa mungkin saya tak dapat lupakan lah.
Most of the people have never witnessed the grand installation of their ruler. But Negeri Sembilan has retained a social architecture designed to cultivate its treasured customs from one generation to the next.
No institution can survive for hundreds of years without changing with the times. I think there's always a balance. On the one hand, changing a bit with the times, but on the other hand, reminding the times that there's this history, this tradition that comes before you.
Tuanku Muhris's family have all taken very hands-on roles for the big event. His father's installation gives Tunku or Prince Zain Al Abidin the opportunity to unveil his new arrangement of the state anthem.
Bar 6 dan bar 11 French horn tu, staccato dan clear, okay? Dan tiba da 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 da. Practice sikit. Okay. Bar 6 and 14. 6 and 14. Yeah. Are you going to do it again?
When I was doing some research on the anthem in preparation for the installation, we discovered that schools in Negeri Sembilan were singing different versions of the anthem, and even online I found vastly different arrangements. So the point of rearranging the anthem was one, to standardize the melody and the words, and secondly, to reinvigorate the anthem. Moving forward, what we're trying to encourage is more personal engagements with the anthem.
As the main event nears, preparations have picked up pace. Detailed renovations have gone into the Balairong or throne room, the stage where the official installation will soon unfold.
This balai has evolved over the years. When the istana was first built and the balai was here, it was effectively just an outdoor sort of pavilion. So it was open on all the edges. You happen to have a throne at the top of here, and this is where my great-grandfather Tunku Abdul Rahman was installed in 1934. Yeah. One of the things that we were quite keen to do was to try and link what was in here with what was important to us in Negeri Sembilan. The old carpet, which has now been removed, included designs that were very distinctly not from Negeri Sembilan, including fleur-de-lis, which is European. If you now look at the chairs, you'll see that the flower motif is actually a motif taken from the Istana Lama.
As his family explore more passages into the traditions of their ancestry, for Tuanku Muhris, it is the Istana Lama, or Old Palace of Sri Menanti, that has always anchored him to his heritage.
I actually grew up just next door. This was in the early to mid-1950s when my grandfather was a ruler. Later on, when my father was the ruler, he loved this place, and we used to actually stay here rather than at the main Istana. I've grown to like the tradition of this place that it represents. So when I got married, this was a right choice. The wedding ceremony was held just behind where I'm sitting, was the place where my great-grandfather had his throne. So I thought that was very apt.
Once he officially becomes ruler, Tuanku Muhriz will hold the ultimate responsibility of taking the traditions of his forefathers into the future. But in Negeri Sembilan, it takes more than ancestry to qualify for this position. (1957). After 80 years of British colonialism, 11 states, including 9 royal Malay kingdoms, joined forces to form an independent Federation of Malaya, a parliamentary democracy with a constitutional monarchy. The spirit of federalism put in place a system where each of the 9 rulers take 5-year terms as the paramount ruler among them. Negeri Sembilan's own Tuanku Abdul Rahman became the first king of the new federation.
Some legal scholars even cite Negeri Sembilan as the origins of federalism in Malaysia today.
I do feel that Negeri Sembilan is unique in its style as a federation. It existed as a federation even before the United States of America was a federation.
The seeds of federalism were sown in Negeri Sembilan nearly a quarter of a millennium ago. In 1773, Raja Malewa, a royal from Pagar Ruyong in Sumatra, journeyed across the Straits of Malacca on the invitation of Negeri Sembilan's chieftains to become their ruler. As part of the celebrations leading up to his father's official installation as the state's new ruler, Tunku Zain al-Abidin leads an expedition retracing the route taken by his royal ancestor.
We do have a claim that stretches back to 1347, which is when Aditya Warman, a local prince, was elevated to become paramount ruler of Pagar Ruyong. So our genealogy, as it were, I think, begins then. And that would place us amongst perhaps one of the older monarchies still in existence today.
This is a bunch of stuff that we found here in the Istana. When I was poking around a cupboard, there was a lot of junk there. And some of it actually proved to be pretty interesting. Mostly personal letters and correspondence between our great-grandfather, but also random things such as postcards and newspapers.
We've always been interested in family history. We are history buffs. I have been researching the various bits and pieces of the family tree for years. Coming across this gold mine was just, beyond the wildest dreams of many historians, I would imagine.
So this is in fact the seal of our great-great-great-grandfather, Tuanku Yamtuan Anta. And we've got a picture of it in the book, and it actually says Yamtuan Tuanku Anta Sri Menanti.
So this was affixed to a lot of the treaties, some of which we found and some of which we haven't. The most important being the 1898 agreement between the Undangs and Tuanku Muhammad, for example, would have chops like these. This is a landmark agreement which, in essence, restored the old socio-political order in Negeri Sembilan. So this puts in black and white a reaffirmation of the 1773 arrangement. And in fact, in the first line, it explicitly says, "We hereby restore the old order."
Negeri Sembilan actually means 9 states, the only one in the world that calls itself by number. The old order is made up of 9 traditional fiefdoms called luaks, each with their own chieftain. They sought a royal candidate from their Minangkabau motherland to rule over them.
It was happening during feudal time. So for me, one of the interesting things about feudalism is the fierce, powerful central ruler who controls the rest. But here we see in Negeri Sembilan, 9 small states fiercely retaining their autonomy but inviting someone to become their king.
Negeri yang lain biasanya apabila sultan ataupun raja mangkat, anak dan baginda akan menggantikan. Tetapi di Negeri Sembilan tidak.
Most other monarchies of the world are predictably linear dynasties. But the old order determined a very different succession system for Negeri Sembilan. Candidates for the position of ruler are cast from a pool of royal descendants.
Because historically, the young di-Pertuan was invited from somewhere else to become young di-Pertuan, the jadikan tuan, the one who's made the tuan or the king. So, the power of the selecting the heir to the throne is not in the hand of the Sultan. It's in the hand of the Undang.
The Undang are the chieftains from the biggest luaks or traditional fiefdoms of Negeri Sembilan. Since 1773, they've remained the kingmakers of the state, themselves subject to election by leaders of respective clans.
Bulat buapa menjadikan lembaga, bulat lembaga menjadikan undang. I mean, agreement and consensus among the buapa, which is the leader of the lineage, makes the lembaga the leader of the clan. Consensus among the clan leaders makes the undang. And consensus among the undang makes the raja. That's what it is. So it's a series of consensus. You made me, I made you, and you made me.
When Tuanku Menawe passed away in 1967, after only 7 years on the throne, instead of appointing his 19-year-old son, Tunku Muhriz, to succeed him, the Undang chose Tuanku Menawe's brother, the experienced diplomat Tunku Jafar.
Datuk Kelana Putra sebagai Imam Undang yang 4 menyuruh Datuk Bentara Kanan menyeru sabda Undang yang 4 kepada sekaliannya bahawa hari ini mereka mengerjakan Tuanku naik atas tahta kerajaan Negeri Sembilan menggantikan almarhum kekandanya.
Over the years, you see this complicated permutation of uncle, cousin, son, and nephews. So it shows that the candidature and the one who can become the king is open.
In late 2008, Negeri Sembilan lost her revered Tuanku Jafar. He was survived by 6 children, including 3 sons eligible to succeed him as ruler. After 40 years, the Undang were called upon to elect a successor. Emerging from careful deliberation, they decided to appoint Tuanku Jafar's nephew, Tunku Muhriz. Negeri Sembilan's unique royal succession system is unlike any other in the world. The process of electing a ruler has produced a succession of rulers drawn from a spectrum much wider than in other monarchies.
Royal democracy and a constitutional monarchy is always an interesting concept. You respect democracy because the tradition of democracy has existed for so long.
As his family go through final seating positions for the official installation, Senior Prince Tunku Ali sits by Tuanku Muhriz's right hand. But as his father's experience has shown him, this does not mean he's automatically next in line.
There's a possibility that one could be elected, and there's a possibility that it's not the case. So one ends up spending one's life trying to figure out what that means. And ultimately, I think it helps one become better prepared.
So you could say we are a democracy. Every level is elected by the people below them, not appointed by the people above.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
On the eve of his official installation, Tuanku Muhriz joins his local community in the royal town of Sembilan as they pray for their new ruler's safe passage to the throne. Today marks the last milestone of Tuanku Muhriz's journey to the throne of Negeri Sembilan. Before being officially installed as the state's 11th ruler, he makes a special visit to the royal burial grounds of Sembilan, the final resting place of his ancestors. With his consort and 3 sons behind him, Tuanku Muhriz pays respects first at the tomb of his father, Tuanku Menawe, who performed the same rites of passage half a century ago.
Dalam perantaraan waktu selama 27 tahun, Negeri Sembilan sekali lagi menyaksikan peristiwa agung dalam sejarahnya, Pertabalan Yam Tuan yang ke-9.
41 years after his passing, Tuanku Menawe's son comes home to finally take the throne.